are now going to transition to our next session, which is learning more about fire sprinkler incentives. As Bill and Shane mentioned, there's a gentleman by the name of Andy Quinn. He is a founding partner of McAllister and Quinn and manages a unique portfolio of clients, including hospitals and health systems, higher education institutions, associations, and public and private corporations. He will be explaining available fire sprinkler incentives, and I think that he most likely will be sharing some of his stories regarding the advocates and the differences that they've made. And I'm not going to put you on the spot, Andy, but I really do think you have a sweet spot for the fire service and for those who have been directly affected by fire. I've watched you work your magic on Capitol Hill, and we could not have made it without you. I'm betting you might be the fastest walker on Capitol Hill, and we had to hurry to keep up, but you never led us astray, and you kept us focused, and you got us in the meetings we needed. So Andy, talk to us a little bit about those fire sprinkler incentives and what you've watched happen in the past 20 years.
Absolutely. Well, Vickie, thank you so much for organizing this event. Just talk a little bit about the advocates. Is having a fire chief go up to Capitol Hill, in particular for a hometown fire chief for some of these members. We were just up on Capitol Hill earlier this year, and Vina Drennan, which is force of nature, who's well known to a lot of folks on the call today. I mean, I have seen congressional staffers break down in tears when she tells about the loss of her husband, who tragically was killed in New York. I want to really kind of just walk through what two of the provisions do, and I'll try to keep it as less technical as possible. So there's two things that I want to talk about. One is what's known as Section 179, and this is really aimed at those small businesses. And what it does under the tax code is allow qualified small businesses to fully deduct the cost of installing a fire sprinkler system. So Section 179 has been in the tax code for a number of years. It had historically been restricted to things like equipment, machinery, office equipment, light duty trucks if they were over 6,000 pounds, software and computers. And in 2017, what Congress did is it broadened the applicability to that to include fire sprinklers, which was essentially a big part of what the Fire Sprinkler Incentive Act would be. There is a complicated phase in, phase out, which I just want to spend one moment on. And then if folks have detailed questions, they can certainly email me personally, and I'll be happy to do a phone call with you. Because they want to limit it to small businesses, it's after $3.1 million, they start having a phase out, because what they don't want to do is have Fortune 500 companies be using this. And so when you go over that $3.1 million, basically at that point, it phases out dollar for dollar in terms of the amount of equipment that you put in service in a given tax year. So the total cap would be, if you put more than almost this year, and it's indexed to inflation, is $4.38 million. At that point, you are not eligible for Section 179. And so the way that this would functionally work is, let's say with that threshold of 3.1, if you put $3.5 million in service that year, you can't do the full 1.25 million. They would deduct that additional 370,000 that you were over that cap. And then so your availability to deduct would be 880,000, which would be the difference between the 1.25 million and the 370 that you were over. So it does kind of gradually taper down, but I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of businesses, small businesses in particular, that given what sprinklers cost to install, couldn't fully expense it in the tax year that is put in service. So when people talk about cost, when you put in the fact that will lower your adjusted gross income for that tax year, and the fact in some cases you will save anywhere from a quarter to a third on your business insurance, because again, fire sprinklers are incredibly effective, is that provides a very, very powerful financial incentive for people to do the right thing. No one argues that fire sprinklers don't work. It's, in my opinion, no one credible. It's always been a question of cost. And with 179 for small businesses, it takes cost completely off the table. There is no reason why they cannot do it.
Agree. And I know that we also did a case study where we had actual sample tax returns that show this, and that's available on the website that Shane was mentioning as well. So I know a lot of times it helps us to see exactly, but you did a great job explaining that. And I know that tax code always gets a little complicated, and we certainly always add the line, please consult your tax professional, because every business is unique, right? So in order to make sure that you get the full ability and also understand how the law impacts your personal business, it's worth looping your tax professional in for sure.
Absolutely. The second thing is a provision called qualified improvement property. And so prior to 2017, there were specific tax breaks for the restaurant industries, for retailers, and even for leasehold improvements. And it was a little bit messy. And so what Congress decided to do is we're going to create this new thing called qualified improvement property. So the easiest way to think of it is everything on the interior of a commercial building. So that includes fire sprinklers, plumbing, electrical, all of that stuff. The only thing that it doesn't really cover is if you were like to structurally change elements of the building, like you added on another story, if you put in an elevator or escalator, but basically anything within the four walls of that building would get a new depreciation schedule. For a lot of the items in that, for example, fire sprinklers had traditionally been depreciated like they were plumbing. And so that was a 39-year recovery period. And so you can imagine a lot of building owners say, well, I don't want to make that investment. You know, I'm now 54. I don't know if I have another, I would like to think I have another 39 years left in me, but probably not. So that lack of availability to recover these investments quickly was a huge challenge. And so what they did is by creating that new qualified improvement property, that includes fire sprinklers, which basically set the long-term depreciation, not 39 years, down to 15 years. The other thing that it did,
big difference.
It's a huge difference. The other thing too is that it also made it eligible for something which is known as bonus depreciation. They had a very complicated schedule back in 2017. So right now, for example, in 2025, if you put in $1 million fire sprinkler system, which would be a huge system, you'd be allowed first on bonus depreciation to immediately write off 40% of it. So you would write $400,000 off of your taxes. For the remaining $600,000, then you could depreciate that over 15 years. In 2026, that 40% is going to come down to 20%. And in 2027, if Congress doesn't do anything on bonus depreciation, it would go down to zero. So after 2027, sprinkler systems would just be depreciated over a 15-year time horizon. We're going to do another tax bill this year because all of the 2017 tax cuts that us on a personal level enjoy, not on the corporate side, those were all made permanent. Most of them expire. So Congress is probably going to do something on bonus depreciation. So although it's slated to go away in 2027, my guess is by the end of the year, Congress is going to do something a bit different.
And we hope we're there to make a difference with that. And I remind you that if you would like us, there's an awesome summary sheet that Andy, you and your team developed for us, and that's posted on that website that Shane mentioned as well, nfsa.org/tax reform. And thank you, Andy, for being with us. We now have a video that we would like to play from one of our sponsors, and then we're going to transition in, and Andy, you'll hang around with us, and we will add Michaela to the mix, I believe, and we'll talk specifically about the High-Rise Fire Sprinkler Incentive Act. But let's take a moment and have a message from one of our sponsors, which I believe may be NFSA.